Hey guys, it's John. So, kind of a weird spot to be in. I'm in my office right now and I wanted to try a new video. And so, we're going to give it a shot. So, today I'm going to try to start maybe a new series. Let me know how you feel about it, where I think I'm going to call it Cool Critters. Maybe I'll change it. But basically, the idea is I want to talk to you about an animal that I find interesting. And while I'm talking to you and giving you some interesting facts and trivia about that animal, I'm going to have myself painting that animal in the background. So, one of my favorite things in the world is to learn stuff on accident. And I think that this is a good way to make you accidentally learn some stuff about some pretty interesting animals. And so, if you don't want to listen to me, you can just watch the video of me painting this animal. And if you are interested, stay tuned. Maybe I'll share some interesting facts about today's animal, which is the red-footed tortoise. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and ask you to leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell. You don't have to do it right now. Maybe watch some of the video, let me know how you feel about it, and then you can do it. I just feel like it's easier to ask at the beginning of the video because more likely you'll still be watching at this point. So I'm going to kind of jump in and out here, and most of it is going to be the process of me painting the red-footed tortoise. And today our reference is actually my own pet red-footed tortoise. Her name is Topaz. I went outside and I took some photos of her, and that's what we're going to be doing for the painting. So I'll probably start that now and you'll see that going. And I'm going to read some of these interesting facts, and maybe I'll be in the corner somewhere where I'm not too distracting, but you can still see me reading them. Now, I'm just on Wikipedia, I know, but maybe I will kind of flip through this and tell you anything that I think is interesting, and we'll get right into it. So, to begin with, red-footed tortoise. Scientific name is, hang on, let's try this. Chelonoidus carbonarius, species of tortoise from northern South America. So they're actually a forest tortoise, not so much a desert tortoise, which is what you would think of when you think of a tortoise. They're fairly small. They call them medium-sized tortoises here. I'm thinking of like a Galapagos. Those are huge, giant tortoises. These guys get to about maybe a foot long in shell length. Some of the larger ones, maybe about 16 inches. So a foot to foot and a half would be a huge one. They're very darkly colored, almost black, and they have these bright red scales on their feet and their legs and little parts of their head, and that's why they're called a red-footed tortoise. You can see in my drawing here, I've got some sections switched off, and you'll see as I start painting it, they have big, bright red scales on their feet, which is why they're called a red-footed tortoise. They're omnivorous. They eat a lot of plants, grasses, flowers, fruit. And it says here, notably, fungi. I guess that's not something that most tortoises do. Fungi being mushrooms. They will eat the occasional earthworm or invertebrate as well. They'll also scavenge on carrion. So, meaning dead animals. They'll eat rotting corpses, essentially, like a vulture. Our tortoise, Topaz, she doesn't eat many rotting carcasses, but I know we have hibiscus flowers, and she loves to eat hibiscus flowers. And that's one of the treats that we give her quite often because we have a ton of hibiscus plants. And whenever they flower, we go, oh, so pretty, rip it off and then give it to the tortoise. They're popularly kept as pets. For example, we have some. We actually have two. One, Topaz, is the one that I'm using for the photo. And then we have one named Chip, who is very small. He's this big around, maybe. They are listed as vulnerable to extinction, despite their relative ease of captive breeding and the availability of captive bred tortoises. I believe this is probably due to overcollection. Yeah, here it says overcollection of eggs in the wild and capturing of mature animals. So, unfortunately, like a lot of reptiles, the pet trade, they do wild caught, where they go out into the wilderness and they capture these wild animals and then sell them as pets. Even though redfoot tortoises, like it says here, are totally capable of being bred in captivity, where they're healthier on average and they're less likely to carry parasites and have underlying health conditions. Unfortunately, due to the pet trade, it's a lot cheaper to steal one from the jungle than it is to breed one captively, and because then you have to take care of it and make it happy so it'll have eggs and stuff. And so unfortunately, like a lot of reptiles, captive bred are going to be more expensive, but that's the more reasonable way if you consider getting one as a pet. Wild caught pets are more common, but they're less humane. Remote tribal groups in South America still consider these tortoises a basic source of meat. Obviously, if they're remote tribal groups, they're not really aware how endangered they are. We can't fault them for what they don't know, but activists report seeing live red-footed tortoises for sale in markets where bushmeat and live animals are sold. There's several different names for the red-footed tortoise. I always call them red-footed tortoise, but they also call them red leg, red-legged, or red foot, often without the hyphen. So I did red hyphen footed, but they say red foot, just one word. Local names, such as Karumbe with a C or with a K, which means slow moving, Wayapopi or Moroccoy, and variations of Djibouti, which is, or Japuta or Djibouti Piranga, which is in like Brazil and Argentina. In Portuguese, Djibouti refers to both the red-footed tortoise and yellow-footed tortoise, a relative of them, which is yellow instead of red. So their natural range is from southeastern Panama to Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, north and south along the Andes, to the west in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, east to Brazil, and along the southern range in Bolivia, Paraguay, or Paraguay, and possibly northern Argentina. They're not evenly distributed within their range, it says. For example, they're not often found in central Brazil or in heavily forested areas in general. Only documented in Peru since 1985. They're also found on several Caribbean islands, although it's not always clear if they're native or brought by humans. The tortoises, unlike turtles, are not typically great swimmers. They're fairly heavy-bodied, and they don't have good flippers for swimming or webbed toes very well. They're more built for digging as opposed to swimming, so finding them on islands is pretty interesting. Preferred habitat, they prefer to live in temperatures around 30 Celsius, which is 86 Fahrenheit, for those of my American viewers like myself. And they rarely go lower than about 20 Celsius, or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or over 35 Celsius, 95 Fahrenheit. Generally love high humidity, plenty of rainfall. Like I said, they're kind of forest edge, rainforesty type tortoises. They're often found near transitional areas between forest and savanna, such as forest clearings, wood edges, and along waterways. So they don't live in the jungle, but right on the edge of it, where they can be shaded when it gets really hot out, or can walk out into the sun if it's a little cooler. So as a young, the tortoises suffer from a high risk of predation, as you would expect. They're very small when they hatch, Like I said, our guy is maybe that big around. And so anything much bigger than them, for example, tegus, which is a type of lizard, with it's basically a bulldog. It's if you mix a bulldog with an iguana, that's a tegu. Ring-tailed coatis, introduced rats, mongooses, attack nests and eggs. Many predators take the young tortoises. For example, large lizards, like I said, the tegu, snakes, crocodilians, even large turtles, predatory birds, even cats, it says. Possums, foxes, peccaries, feral dogs. So the young are very commonly fed on, which I would expect. They're small. However, when they grow to their adult size, the main predator, other than humans for these guys, is actually jaguars. They'll bite at the carapace, or the shell, and crack it open like you would with oysters, and they'll pull out the meaty bits from the inside. So they don't really know how long these guys live. Like most tortoises, they're fairly long-lived, they believe, but because of it being a little more difficult to find them in the wild, and it's difficult to be able to tell the age of a tortoise, they don't really know how long they live in the wild. However, in captivity, it's common for a red-footed tortoise to live 30 years or more. So as you would expect, the red spots on the tortoises is used as a mating display. As like with most animals, a lot of mating displays come in the form of bright colors. However, they are not super highly sexually dimorphic, which means that males and females look pretty similar. And so both males and females of the red-footed tortoise species do have the red spots on their legs. But the males use them typically in mating displays with other females. The ones with the biggest and brightest red on their legs are more likely to mate with the females, which is how they got there in the first place, naturally, but that continues to be how they choose a mate. So typically males of the species are a little bigger than females, and like I said, they get to about 1 foot to 1.5 feet long. Weight-wise, they can weigh up to about 20 pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's not that big of an animal. You got to think, if I lean back here, our tortoise is about this big, I would say. And so she's pretty close to max size, and she's a very dense animal. There's a lot of tortoise inside that shell. I don't think people think about it often that these animals are very dense and they're very heavy. The shell itself is, it's like, I think it's made from keratin. Yeah, so keratin. It is made out of keratin, which is the stuff that your hair is made out of, the stuff that your fingernails are made out of. And you don't think about it, but when it's that thick It's very heavy. If you have a lot of hair, you'll know it can get heavy when you get enough of it. And so even though they're not that big of an animal, they can weigh 20 plus pounds, which is pretty impressive to me. Okay, we're going to go ahead and finish up here. I think that's about it for all of my fun facts. And so I'm going to finish the painting, and then I'll take it outside so we can get a good look at it in the sun. Hopefully, if the sun's still up when I finish this painting. And then we'll do an outro and we'll get out of here. All right, guys, we're all finished. Here is the final piece. There's my girl Topaz. Hopefully you enjoyed this format of video. I had a good time making it. I appreciate all of the views that I have been getting. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Ring the bell so that you're notified whenever I post a video. Leave a comment. Let's say if you watched it all the way to the end, go ahead and leave a comment and say Topaz. That way I know who's for real and who ain't. Once again, I really appreciate you watching. Let me know what animals you'd like to see me do in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next one.